Chapter 1580. Qixuan smiled and nodded. Yeah, he taught me how to make use of all the resources to achieve my goals. Moreover, I know how to bully others the best. Gu Mingming knew who the he Qixuan was referring to was, but did not say it out loud. Death was like an extinguished lamp. She promised Leah to let go of all grudges and not hate him or view him as an enemy. After parting ways with Qixuan, Gu Mingming returned to Sauter. The entire Wolf clan and Fox clan were gathered here. Putting aside the Wolf clan, the Fox clan was a major event due to the change of the Beast King. If Leah did not return to reorganize things, there would definitely be a lot of trouble. Moreover, Gu Mingming would have to die after the succession of the Beast deity. Not mentioning others, Gu Mingming would definitely not feel at ease if she did not console Sandy. Hence, it was a long and arduous journey. Although Gu Mingming was no longer a Beast King, her 2 legs were originally just a decoration. Elvis and Leah had never expected her to use her own legs to guide her on any path. In the past, they had to carry her. Now that she was pregnant, it was even more impossible for them to let her walk on her own. Hence, although they had to rest more often to take care of Gu Mingming's easily fatigued body, Leah was also a Beast King now and his traveling speed had increased significantly. Hence, when they returned to Sauter, they were not much slower than before. Sandy and her family were waiting at the city gates with Hutta and Jiaoyu. Seeing Gu Mingming return from afar, nobody moved. Sandy had already pounced over and hugged Gu Mingming in her arms. Without a word, she started crying. Gu Mingming could not move from Sandy's bear hug. She could only smile foolishly. What's the matter, my little bear bun? Who bullied you? Tell me, I will help you. You heartless one. Sob sob sob. Why didn't you stay in Sauter for the winter? Ah. If you were in Sauter, I could at least accompany you. You knew. Gu Mingming was a little confused. How should she put it? When those things happened, she was still in the Snake King Valley. News of the entire beast world was blocked. How did Sandy know what she had been through? Sandy said with snot and tears in his eyes. The Fox King is dead. How can such a big thing be hidden? Don't forget, we still have a beast pet from the Snow Fox clan. Furthermore, even if Arnold didn't say anything, do you know how chaotic Sauter was during those few days? I don't want to know. How can I not know? Gu Mingming hugged Sandy back and patted her back gently. All right, don't cry. I'm fine, aren't I? Nothing? Do you think I'm a fool? Do you think I don't know what kind of person Cole is? How could it be that easy to kill him? Tell me honestly, how much have you suffered? What have you suffered? And Qixuan, sob sob sob. My poor little Qixuan, I haven't had the chance to have a daughter to mate with him. Qixuan is fine, he's not dead. Gu Mingming knew that Sandy must have thought of the connection between Qixuan and Cole through the bewitching spell and the soul of the forest, so she said, before Cole died, he specially told me how to break the connection between him and Qixuan. Would he be so kind? Sandy was skeptical. Chapter 1581. If he wanted Qixuan to die, he would have done so long ago. On the contrary, he tolerated Qixuan's provocations and rebellious behavior because he developed feelings for him. After all, human hearts were made of flesh. If Cole had not treated Qixuan so well, Qixuan would not have treated him like his own father. Now that she thought about it, Gu Mingming felt that she might have been too extreme at that time. But Sandy did not care about all that. She just pulled Gu Mingming over to check on her. Seeing that she was not injured or sick, she felt more at ease. Who cares what happened to him? It's just that when I knew he was dead, the first thing I thought of was the price you would have to pay. The more I thought about it, the more flustered I became. I lived in fear for the entire winter. Afterwards, Arnold said that he could feel the birth of a new king. I guessed that there was no one else other than Leah. Only then did I feel more at ease. Aren't I fine now? Gu Mingming held Sandy's little hand and comforted her as they walked into the city. Congratulations to the Fox King and Queen for having a noble daughter. Arnold cupped his fists and bowed respectfully. Gu Mingming chuckled. Now, I am truly worthy of being addressed as Queen. Arnold, thank you for your blessings. With that, Gu Mingming patted Sandy's little hand. Now that Leah has become the Fox King, the Fox and Wolf tribes will become the closest of friends. So, you don't have to worry about what will happen to him, me or anyone else. If you like him, just let him be. Sandy cleared her throat and smiled. She turned her head to look at Arnold and said, Arnold, you go back home and lie down first. I'll go back in a bit. Arnold's eyes flashed. The corners of his lips curled up uncontrollably. He replied softly, yes. Then he turned to leave and returned to the small stone room. Leah was also smiling. He teased. Not attending. Sandy turned to look at Leah for a moment. The mighty Leah who hung on the tree in St. Nazaire like a piece of fox skin, and was on the brink of death. I don't think he has much of a future now. Leah gritted his teeth. I am the Fox King now. Aren't you afraid that I will kill your little fox in anger? Sandy hugged Gu Mingming's arm and said, Kill him if you can. By then, I will stick to my girl every day and she will definitely coax me and ignore you. By then, even if you go to the platform of the deity's punishment and try to commit suicide, I will not let go. I will not let her save you, Humph. You. Leah looked at Gu Mingming and took a deep breath. He smiled apologetically and said, A good man does not fight with a woman. I will tolerate you. Sandy chuckled and looked at Gu Mingming. Did you see that? This is what a woman should be like. You stay at home every day like a coward and get bullied by the two of them. As she spoke, Sandy gently caressed Gu Mingming's tummy. My daughter-in-law is inside. She must not be as cowardly as you in the future. She had to be dignified, with the demeanor of the head of the family. From now on, the two of us have to lead by example and have the final say in the family. What is this called again? Gu Mingming smiled and added, Prenatal education. Yes. Prenatal education. Prenatal education is very important. Sandy rambled on and on. None of the males from the two families dared to interrupt. Elvis nudged Leah gently and asked softly, You actually have a day where you admit defeat. Chapter 1582. Since Arnold was still at home waiting for Sandy's arrival, Gu Mingming did not hold Sandy for too long, and just teased her for a while before sending her off. Leah was the new king and naturally had some matters to settle. He would not stay in Sauter for long and would even die with Gu Mingming after Gu Mingming settled her affairs. In order to prevent the world from falling into chaos after the sudden disappearance of the Fox King, many things had to be settled now. But due to the change of the Fox King, Cole, who used to be Gu Mingming's enemy, became her partner Leah. The relationship between the Fox King and the Wolf Clan changed from being enemies to a family. In order not to put the Beast Kings of both clans in a difficult position because of their clansmen, both parties were much more polite to each other. As time went by, they developed many true friendships. Although they were not as close as Elvis and Leah, they were still very harmonious and got along well with each other. Although Lee's methods were much gentler than Cole's, they were after all learned from the same system. Many times, they achieved the same results through different means. It was just that he cared about Gu Mingming's feelings. Leah was more lenient, and did not use the simple and violent methods in the past. Instead, he used the carrot and stick strategy. Although it was a roundabout way, with Elvis's cooperation, the matters in Sauter did not take up too much time. Before the monsoon season ended, Leah and Elvis had already arranged everything. Oriton's injuries had already healed before winter, but because Gu Mingming did not stay in Sauter for the winter, he stayed in the stone castle alone as a guardian beast. There was food originally prepared by Elvis in the stone castle, and it was enough for him to eat alone. But although he did not have that kind of relationship with Gu Mingming, he was still a member of the family. Hence, when Gu Mingming left Sauter, Oriton followed her. Sandy's eyes were red as she held back her tears and said, Girl, we agreed that the one in your tummy must prioritize our son as the first partner in the future. So after you give birth, you must come back to see me, or else, I will cry myself to death. Gu Mingming hugged Sandy and patted her back, coaxing her gently. All right, my little bear bun. You're already a mother. Why do you still cry so much? You're still the same as when we first met. You haven't matured at all. I don't care. If you don't agree, I won't let go. Sandy's eyes were rimmed red, like a child who had to buy a toy no matter what. And Gu Mingming was her most beloved toy. Gu Mingming shook her head helplessly and said, all right, after I give birth, I will definitely bring her over to let you, my future mother-in-law, take a look, all right? Sandy stretched out her chubby little hand with her pinky and said, pinky promise. All right. Gu Mingming also stuck out her pinky and hooked it with Sandy. Do you believe me now? Sandy nodded and hugged Gu Mingming for a long time before saying with a thick nasal voice, girl, take care. I'll be waiting for you in solder. I'll always be waiting for you. All right. Gu Mingming returned a tight hug and said, you take care too. The two females were reluctant to part and did not cry when hugging each other. But the moment Elvis carried Gu Mingming and turned to leave, the two females could no longer hold back their tears. They knew that this farewell. Chapter 1583. A month's journey was not long at all. But Gu Mingming could not help but feel emotional when she revisited this place. The last time she walked this path, Gregory and Little Shit were still by her side. This time, things were the same, but the people were different. Standing by the stream again, Gu Mingming could not help but shake her head and smile bitterly. How could she climb Mota Mountains without wings? I can't seem to keep my promises to him. Gu Mingming felt sad. Looking at the tallest mountain peak, she did not know where to go. Leah hugged Gu Mingming's shoulders and chuckled. Silly girl. Didn't someone already think of a solution for us? Gu Mingming was confused. Lee's long and narrow eyes turned. Hey, isn't there someone coming to fetch us now? Gu Mingming glanced sideways and saw two vultures flying over. Their sizes were similar to Gregory's, but Gu Mingming could easily tell that it was not Gregory. The two vultures landed on the ground and bowed respectfully. Great messenger. Gu Mingming narrowed her eyes. She felt that the two of them looked familiar. After thinking carefully, she recognized one of them as Miranda's current first partner, Lucas. She understood that Leah had used his identity as the Fox King to order Miranda, so her partner had no choice but to listen to Lee's orders and come to be the carriage driver. After all, he was someone else's male. It was not appropriate for Gu Mingming to ride on his back. Luckily, Lucas had brought a huge piece of beast skin. He wrapped Gu Mingming up with his claws and flew straight to the top of Mota Mountain. The other vulture brought Elvis, Leah and Oriton to the small cave where Gu Mingming and Gregory had stayed for 7 days. The immense air pressure made Gu Mingming feel like she was about to faint. She bit the tip of her tongue lightly to keep herself awake, because she knew that the wind would stop at Mota Mountains for half a day during the dry season. If she fainted now, she would have to wait until next year to see Gregory. Forcing herself to stay awake, Gu Mingming finally reached the top of the mountain. The scenery was the same as last year. It was just that Gregory was no longer by her side. Gu Mingming squatted beside the cold spring and looked at the wings that were deep asleep at the bottom of the spring through the clear and sharp water. That was Gregory's wings. He had once brought her to swim 6,000 meters in the air, overlooking the entire Mota Mountains. For some reason, Gu Mingming stretched out her hand, wanting to touch that pair of wings again. But before her hand could touch the water, a gust of wind blew past, scattering the spring water. Gu Mingming retracted her finger and gently touched the feather on her right ear. She smiled and said, I know. The water from the 1,000-year ice hurts both the hand and the body. I can't touch it. A gentle breeze blew and the feather on Gu Mingming's right ear fluttered in the wind. It was like someone's faint smile, carrying a tinge of approval. Gu Mingming walked to one of the caves on the mountain peak. She knew that Samuel's body was originally placed on the other side, so this side should be Gregory's. Great messenger. Lucas stopped Gu Mingming and shook his head. He said, birds have their own pride. What he doesn't want the most is for you to see him in such a miserable state. Gu Mingming stopped in her tracks and looked at Lucas. After a while, she smiled and said, you are right. He doesn't want me to pity him because of his misery. Chapter 1584. Gu Mingming looked up at the blue sky and smiled faintly. I really came back to Mota Mountains for the dry season. Did you have a hard time waiting for me this year? Let me sing a song to console you, all right? Gu Mingming's reply was only a light breeze. Gu Mingming cleared her throat and sang, just happened to meet you. This was a song she had sung many times for Gregory. But back then, when she sang, he was hugging her and swaying his body along with the melody. But now, she was alone and the wind was her companion. Before she had the time to feel sad, a wave of chirping filled the air. Gu Mingming followed the sound. Countless birds flew up from the foot of the mountain. They were colorful and covered the sky. It was a spectacular sight. The birds spread their wings and soared, some high, some low, some left, some right. Seeing that Gu Mingming was looking at them, they all transformed into half-beasts and surrounded Gu Mingming. Then they started singing the melody without words. This song Gu Mingming had heard it before. It was the song that Grace had sung to her when he held her in his arms back then. Gu Mingming's eyes felt a little sore. She knew that this was the symphony Gregory had prepared for her. It was a concert only for her to listen to. This was the romance he had given her, only for her. After the song was finished, the birds scattered in all directions, just like when they came. All of this seemed to be just a dream. It was so unreal. Gu Mingming turned back to look at Lucas. Lucas stood beside her with a smile. This is a ceremony for the birds of Mota Mountains to congratulate their leader on his marriage. It should have been sent last year, but Gu Mingming nodded to show that she understood. Last year, Gregory had broken his wings and was blinded. She was forcefully taken away by Samuel's wings. She cried her heart out and fainted in the end. Under those circumstances, it was indeed not suitable to hold this ceremony. Although Gregory was just a beast pet, he was still considered a member of her family. In the beast world, Gregory was her man. Who is the leader of Mota Mountains now? Gu Mingming did not want the atmosphere to be too heavy, because Gregory had said that he liked it when she smiled. As long as she smiled, he would feel happy. So at least on Mota Mountains, Gu Mingming had to maintain a smile at all times. Lucas shook his head and said, "In the past, the choice of a leader was based on the response to that Lord's messenger. But last year, when we went down the mountain, we found that the messenger had disappeared." So, Gu Mingming nodded and said, "All right, bring me to see Miranda." Yes. Lucas was actually a little hesitant, but Gu Mingming's partner was Leah and he held Miranda's life in his hands. He really did not dare to defy Gu Mingming's orders. Moreover, she was someone Gregory had been protecting with all his heart. Now Gregory was the guardian of the Mota Mountains. After wrapping Gu Mingming in the beast's skin, Lucas spread his wings and flew up, bringing Gu Mingming back to his cave. In the cave, Miranda was followed by a few small vultures. Their big black eyes were particularly cute. Miranda instinctively shrank back when she saw Gu Mingming, and at the same time, protected the little vulture in her arms. Chapter 1585. Do you know that Cole is dead? Gu Mingming asked softly. Miranda nodded. She was a snow fox and could sense the change of the Fox King through her bloodline. She did not need to witness anything personally to know. Gu Mingming continued, "The new Fox King is Leah." Upon hearing the name that she had struggled with for half her life, Miranda was stunned for a moment and suddenly smiled. "What are you smiling at?" Gu Mingming asked calmly. Perhaps Gu Mingming's attitude was too easygoing, so Miranda gradually relaxed. She looked at Gu Mingming and still replied, "In this year, I have not thought of him at all. Now that you mention it, I realized. I seem to have let him go." Gu Mingming smiled and nodded, saying, "The stubbornness and naive infatuation when you were young. Later on, when you were in danger, you would naturally fantasize about him rescuing you like a hero. Now that you are living a blissful life and have partners who love you, they are the heroes you can easily reach. With them, you naturally do not need an imaginary hero anymore." Miranda nodded, indicating that she agreed with Gu Mingming's words. Gu Mingming reached out and held onto Miranda's wrist, saying, "I was also rash in the past. Your hands, it's my fault." Miranda shook her head and said, "I did not have any good intentions when I went to solder. These hands take it as retribution. I promise Leah that everything that happened in the past will be written off, and I will not hold it against him anymore. So one of the reasons I came here this time is to treat your hands." Gu Mingming held onto Miranda's wrists gently and slowly closed her eyes, praying silently in her heart. When she opened her eyes again, She had a gentle smile on her face and said, "Try moving around?" Miranda looked at her own wrists in disbelief. Her beautiful eyes widened, and she could not say a word for a long time. She looked up at Lucas and then reached out her hands. Lucas pulled Miranda over in excitement and scrutinized her wrists closely, unable to hide the joy on his face. He did not despise Miranda's crippled hands, but his heart ached for the excruciating pain she would feel every time the weather changed. Now that her wrists were healed, he would never see her rolling on the ground with a pale face and a head full of sweat. "Thank you, Sir Envoy, for your mercy," Lucas said and was about to kneel. Gu Mengmeng pulled Lucas back and smiled. "Maintain your pride as a bird and don't kneel down so easily. If you really want to thank me, perhaps you can do something else for me. I'm willing to listen to Lord Emissary's orders." Gu Mengmeng said, "I want you to replace Gregory and become the new leader of Mota Mountains. Help me guard Mota Mountains until the next messenger of the beast deity descends." Lucas frowned and said, "I wonder when the next emissary will descend?" Gu Mengmeng replied, "About 1,000 years." Lucas said, "Sir Emissary, although I don't know how to count, I know what kind of span 1,000 years is. I'm just a rank 3 orc, I won't be able to live until then." Gu Mengmeng chuckled and looked at the cub beside Miranda. "Even if you don't live to that day, you still have your sons, and your sons will still have sons. Your descendants will definitely live to that day." Lucas looked at Miranda, and only when he saw Miranda nod slightly did he place his right hand on his left chest, saluted, and said, "As the great messenger commands, Lucas will not disappoint." Chapter 1586. Without Gregory, it was inconvenient to go in and out, so Gu Mengmeng did not really stay on Mota Mountains for the entire dry season. Instead, she asked Lucas to send them down the mountain after staying for 7 days. Gu Mengmeng stayed by the stream until the dry season ended, before setting off for the seaside with Elvis, Leah and Oriton. She had once thought that she would never set foot here again after taking the kiss of the ocean. Now that she was back, Gu Mengmeng could not help but feel as though a lifetime had passed. However, the tear of the beast deity was gone. She did not know if the kiss of the beast deity that Wang Xiaoxin had given her was still around. If everything that Wang Xiaoxin had given her was gone, then Gu Mengmeng really did not dare to go into the sea so easily. After all, little shit was not around. If she drowned, no one would be able to collect her corpse. Just as she was hesitating on how to go down, she saw a small head poking out from the surface of the sea. Only half a face was revealed, but it could not hide the clear, starry eyes. Once Gu Mengmeng met that pair of eyes, her lips would unknowingly curve upwards. Waving her hand, Gu Mengmeng shouted, "Little Fei Rue?" "Great messenger, it's really you." Fei Rue swiftly swam out of the sea and transformed into a human the moment he reached the shore. Fei Rue was very happy to see Gu Mengmeng, but due to the obvious animosity between Elvis and Leah, Fei Rue did not dare to approach Gu Mengmeng. He only stopped 3 steps away and twirled his fingers as he looked at Gu Mengmeng with a smile. His voice was clear and clean, like the ocean illuminated by sunlight, making one feel refreshed. "The little fishes along the way told me that they saw you heading this way. I did not believe them. I did not expect it to really be the great messenger. I must tell my sister. If she knows that you are here, she will be very, very happy." Gu Mengmeng looked at the big boy in front of her, and her heart warmed up. When she first saw him, he was as pathetic as an abandoned puppy. He had poked half his head out from the well in Saint Nazaire, and asked her pitifully if she could let him enter Saint Nazaire's territory. A mere second-level orc actually dared to start a war with Leah in the territory of land beasts, almost causing Leah to block that well to death. That tiny him was now a head taller than Gu Mengmeng. When Gu Mengmeng looked at him, she could no longer lower her head to look at him like she was looking at a child. Only then did he realize that Gu Mengmeng had been very busy these few years, and had not seen Fei Rue for a long time. Twice a year, he would bring the sea tribes to deliver salt and food to Saint Nazaire, but the time Gu Mengmeng spent in Saint Nazaire was decreasing, to the extent that she had not seen him for a long time. But even so, he never stopped running between the two places once or twice a year. Because he remembered Gu Mengmeng mentioning that he was the Prince of Bridges, and also a tribesman of Saint Nazaire. Gu Mingming and the rest set up camp by the seaside and met Melinda and Carter that night. Melinda's signature curly hair made her look even more alluring under the moonlight. Carter had broken through the boundary of rank 3 after mating, and was now the only rank 5 beast in the sea. He looked even more formidable than when they first met. The two of them, one tough and one gentle, looked exceptionally compatible when they stood together. Gu Mingming could not help but stare in a daze. There was a strange atmosphere between the two of them. They were clearly two independent individuals, but it was as if they were the most complete when they stood together. Chapter 1587. I missed you too. Gu Mingming smiled back. You are looking at the scenery, but you don't know that you are also the scenery in someone else's eyes. While Gu Mingming was admiring Melinda and Carter's compatibility, in Melinda's eyes, she saw the only two beast kings in this world standing beside a petite female. There was a saying that two tigers cannot share a mountain, but these two beast kings did not seem to be against each other at all. They had restrained their sharpness and only had gentle gazes, which were all focused on the petite human in the middle. As for that petite female, she had a quiet and elegant smile. Her belly was bulging but not bloated, and she exuded a gentle motherly radiance. It was not dazzling, but made one unable to shift their gaze away. Gu Mingming noticed that the pearl earrings on Melinda's ears had become a pair. She had accidentally discovered one among the food Fei Rue brought back, while the other. Your earrings are very beautiful, Gu Mingming praised without holding back. Melinda blushed and lowered her head. She glanced at Carter and pouted sweetly. I told him to find a similar one and polish it, but he refused to listen. He stubbornly searched the entire ocean to find this one that looked exactly the same. You don't even know that just because he brought the children to search for pearls, many tribes thought that we were invading them. We fought many ridiculous battles. Children? Gu Mingming asked with a smile. Melinda blushed and nodded. Bridges is now the strongest tribe in the ocean world. Because of the name bestowed by the messenger of the beast deity and Carter, a 5th-level beast, holding down the fort, and the fact that we are not restricted by race, many members of the ocean tribes who lost their tribes came to seek shelter. These 3 years we have also given birth to many children, so? Gu Mingming looked at Melinda's blissful smile and felt a sweetness in her heart. When she had first established the Bridges tribe, she had only wanted to give Melinda and Kate an opportunity. It was like planting a seed in the soil. Now that she saw that the seed had grown into a towering tree, she felt gratified. Melinda and Carter invited Gu Mingming and her family to the ocean, but Gu Mingming rejected them. Even if Elvis and Leah were beast kings now, the bottom of the sea was not a place where they could unleash their powers. She did not want them to worry, nor was she willing to risk the baby in her stomach, so she went straight to the point. The kiss of the ocean has returned to the ocean. Melinda nodded and said, yes, it is coincidentally within Bridges' territory. My brother has already sent someone to Saint Nazaire to deliver the news. Perhaps the messenger is still on the way, but you guys have already arrived. Gu Mingming smiled and nodded. Within your territory? That's great. I have something to ask of you. Please instruct me, great emissary, Melinda said. Gu Mingming instinctively looked at Carter before he replied. Melinda is the head of the household, I listened to her. Gu Mingming was suddenly enlightened. How could she have forgotten that in this world, only females had the right to speak? Don't even beast kings like Elvis and Leah listen to her, much less Carter. Chapter 1588. Melinda held Gu Mingming's hand and smiled sincerely and warmly. Have you forgotten, great messenger? Bridges is your affiliated tribe. Your words are like the will of God. We will never reject you. Gu Mingming shook her head. I am not giving orders as the messenger of the beast deity. I am asking for your help as a friend. Melinda did not understand the difference between the two. Gu Mingming was Gu Mingming, the messenger of the beast deity and her friend. No matter which identity she used, she was still Gu Mingming. As long as Gu Mingming said it, Melinda would not refuse. But she did not try to defend herself. She just smiled and nodded. All right, as a friend, I will agree to your request. Gu Mingming's heart relaxed after the official matters were settled. On the first night, Gu Mingming stayed at the seaside. Melinda and Carter led the mermaid tribe back to the deep sea. Waves of mermaids started blowing bubbles, which gathered together to form a huge bubble. Countless mermaids worked hard for the entire night, and finally completed it the next morning. A huge bubble covered the corals. The seawater was a vacuum, and the bubble was filled with oxygen. This allowed Gu Mingming and the rest to move around freely in the sea. After preparing all these, Melinda returned to the shore and invited Gu Mingming into the sea. Melinda's hospitality was hard to reject. Gu Mingming thought that since she was revisiting an old place, it would be a pity if she did not enter the first stop to search for the 7 treasures. Since there was a solution now, Gu Mingming was naturally willing to go. Elvis and Leah had never gone into the deep sea before. The last time Gu Mingming came, Little Shit had accompanied her. The two of them had been waiting by the shore. This was a rare opportunity, so they naturally had to accompany her. Melinda, Carter and Pei Rue each blew a bubble the size of an astronaut's helmet over the heads of Gu Mingming and her family. Oriton looked rather pitiful without anyone to take care of him. Without an oxygen mask, he could not go into the water. But it was normal not to bring him along since it was a family trip. So he sat by the shore without any expression. He just watched Gu Mingming quietly, completely forgetting about him in her excitement. Anyway, it was not the first time. Oriton should be used to this kind of life. Aren't you going down? Pei Rue's large eyes shone with a clear light as she looked at Oriton timidly. Oriton looked at Gu Mingming. Seeing that she had heard Pei Rue's words, he turned around to look at her. When their gazes met, Gu Mingming smiled until her eyes curved into crescents. Why not? The seabed is so beautiful, let's go together. Oriton nodded his head expressionlessly, replying with a stiff yes. Pei Rue immediately blew a huge bubble over Oriton's head, then pushed him towards Gu Mingming's side. As he pushed, he said, "You are good at everything, just that your personality is too awkward. If you want to go, just say it. If you don't say it, who will know that you want to go?" Oriton turned his expressionless face to the side and said coldly, "I didn't say whether I wanted to go or not. She's the head of the family and I'm the guardian beast. I'm just following orders." Liar. Pei Rue's little nose was raised to the sky. He was no longer the little mermaid whose legs would cramp the moment he saw Oriton. After spending so many years together, he was already used to his zombie-like face. Moreover, he was very clear that although Oriton looked fierce, he was more loyal than anyone else. When he said that he would not let anyone bully him, he really did it. Aside from the topic. Chapter 1589. Although they did not spend much time together, Oriton would always inquire about Pei Rue's management in Saint Nazaire every time he returned. If anyone tried to bully Pei Rue, they would receive a stern warning from the big white cat. Due to Oriton's special status, no one in Saint Nazaire dared to provoke him, even if they were of a higher level than him. Moreover, there was a rumor that Gu Mingming wanted Oriton to take care of Pei Rue, so Pei Rue's status in Saint Nazaire was upgraded to that of a nameless member of the messenger's family. Of course, Gu Mingming did not know about all this. Even if she did, she would just laugh it off. Because she knew better than anyone that Oriton treated Pei Rue well, because Pei Rue always brought him fresh and delicious seafood. After the group entered the water, the sea turtles that Melinda had arranged were already ready. The largest sea turtle was as big as a small yacht, with over 20 sea turtles on each side. They were lined up neatly from big to small. The smallest one was only the size of Gu Mingming's palm. It stretched its neck and tilted its head to look at Gu Mingming with a face full of curiosity. The back of a sea turtle is wider and it swims steadily. It's suitable for you to sit on. Melinda looked at Gu Mingming's stomach thoughtfully and smiled meaningfully. Gu Mingming placed one hand on her stomach and the other on Elvis's neck, allowing him to carry her onto the back of the sea turtle. Sitting steadily, Gu Mingming turned around and flashed a big smile at Melinda. "You don't say. This is my first time riding a sea turtle. In my memory, only Xuanzang had such treatment when he was retrieving scriptures from the West. Haha, thanks to you, I can also experience the treatment of a senior monk from the Tang dynasty." Tap 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 tap. Bayu Bayubiyu, seeing that she was having fun. Everyone's faces were full of smiles. The sea turtle warship swam steadily, but not too slowly. Gu Mengmeng could feel the impact of the water current on her. If not for Elvis supporting her, she would have been washed away. Leah was afraid that she would be uncomfortable if the water current hit her too hard. So he sat in front of her and blocked the impact for her. Heading downwards, they quickly reached the giant space bubble that Melinda had prepared for Gu Mengmeng. The sea turtle stopped outside the bubble, and Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng down from the back of the sea turtle, before stepping into the bubble. Melinda poked lightly and the bubble on Gu Mengmeng's head popped. Elvis, Leah and Oriton did not need anyone's help. They stretched out their claws and popped the bubble. Although it was also the first time for the three males to enter the deep sea, they kept their cool and naturally would not express their curiosity like Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng opened her arms wide and took a deep breath. So the air at the bottom of the ocean smells like this. It's a little salty and has a faint smell of seaweed. I didn't experience this smell the last time I was here because I had the kiss of the beast deity. Luckily, I can make up for it this time. Yeah, if I ever return to the modern world, I will tell those perfume sellers that their sea breeze perfume is trash. Elvis and Leah looked at each other and smiled. She actually wanted to return to the modern world, right? Even so, she still stayed for the sake of the two of them. Chapter 1590. Melinda held onto Gu Mengmeng's arm and said, "If you like it, you can stay here for a few more days. I will ask the mermaids to take turns blowing air into this place. I guarantee that you will have an endless supply of deep-sea air." All right. Gu Mengmeng agreed readily. After all, the arrangements for the kiss of the ocean required time, and she had to stay here for a few days. Without water, the living corals quickly turned into dead corals. They no longer had the furry feeling they had when they were alive. Instead, they had a metallic luster and were as red as blood, giving off a luxurious vibe. Fortunately, this was the deep sea and it had not been overdeveloped by the modern world. So the corals were not considered precious items. Otherwise, Gu Mengmeng's heart would ache to see such a waste. The air bubble did not cover a large area, but there were 4 to 5 corals in total. Each of them was as tall as Elvis, and had a thickness that 3 people could surround. Gu Mengmeng's eyes sparkled as she circled the corals. Melinda also followed Gu Mengmeng's gaze and sized up the corals. She really could not see anything different about them and could only ask, "What's wrong with these corals? Is there anything special about them?" Gu Mengmeng held onto the corals with one hand and supported her waist with the other. She tilted her head to look at Melinda and asked with a smile, "Melinda, do you have many of these corals in your ocean?" Melinda didn't understand, so she nodded. Gu Mengmeng rubbed her little hands together and asked again, "Then can I break off some of them to make a string of beads?" Melinda thought Gu Mengmeng wanted to say something else. Was there a need to discuss such a small matter with her? Chuckling, Melinda held onto Gu Mengmeng's wrist and said, "Great messenger, how many times do I have to say it before you remember? This is your tribe and everything here belongs to you. You can break as many as you want, no one will care." "Really?" Gu Mengmeng grinned and said, "Then I won't stand on ceremony. I want to make a few more string of beads. One for myself and one for my daughter, and one for you and Sandy." "Me too?" Melinda was elated. Previously, Carter had made an earring for her, and later on, Carter had made a second one for her to make a pair. There were many pearls in the deep sea, but she was the only one with such a pair. Now, even if many people did not recognize Carter, they would recognize the earrings on Melinda's ears. Once they saw this pair of earrings, they would know that they were from the messenger's tribe. Now that Gu Mengmeng wanted to make the bracelets and she also had a share, she was naturally very happy. Gu Mengmeng chuckled and said, "We're good friends, of course we should share good things. You know what? Red coral is one of the 8 treasures of Buddhism. It can bring good luck to the wearer." "Buddhism?" Melinda asked curiously. Gu Mengmeng nodded. "Just like how you worship the beast deity, Buddhism is another kind of deity that the beast deity worships. I didn't believe it before, but after these few years, I have no choice but to believe it." Gu Mengmeng laughed at herself. The atheist Gu Mengmeng was now worshipped as the beast deity. This was really a resounding slap to her face. Oh, Melinda's eyes lit up. The deity of the beast deity. How impressive was that? Chapter 1591. With his permission, Gu Mengmeng started to instruct Elvis and Bulai to break off the corals, then use their sharp claws to cut them into small pieces, before slowly grinding them into a round shape. Fei Rui's technique of spitting water needles had already been perfected. One by one, he accurately pierced a small hole in the center of each coral bead without any deviation. After the beads were all polished, the problem was how to string them together. On land they could use vines to make a rope, but this kind of rope could not withstand the corrosion of seawater, and would definitely break after a long time in the water. If they were to use hair, it would be too thin, ugly and hard to fix. Just as Gu Mengmeng was in a dilemma, Melinda gave a better suggestion. She said that there was a type of shellfish at the bottom of the sea. The flesh on the inside of the shell was coiled up, and after the flesh was removed, the tendons would be left. They were elastic and flexible, and could withstand the corrosion of seawater. The only problem was that this type of shellfish fed on venom. Usually it would be used to capture poisonous fishes to eat, so it was highly toxic. Not to mention normal people, even a fifth-level mermaid like Carter would not go near it, unless he had no other choice. If it was in the past, this matter was easy to handle. Gu Mengmeng had snake's tear of the beast deity on her, so she was immune to all poisons. A mere little shellfish could not do anything to her. But after Wang Xiaoxin left, all the special buffs on her had been reset. Not to mention poisonous shellfish, even a mosquito might be able to bite her to death. Risking her life for jewelry, Gu Mengmeng weighed the pros and cons and felt that it was not worth it. Leah held onto Gu Mengmeng's shoulders and smiled. Did you forget again you have 2 omnipotent males? But it's poisonous. Gu Mengmeng shook her head. Leah chuckled. It's been so many years, haven't you gotten used to the beast world style? Females just need to give orders. Males have to think of how to complete them. Gu Mengmeng still shook her head. I don't want my males to risk their lives for a piece of jewelry. Forget it, I'll think about whether there are any other alternatives. Leah sighed and placed both hands on Gu Mengmeng's shoulders. He lowered his head to accommodate her height and looked into her eyes. Have you forgotten who I am? You are Leah. Gu Mengmeng looked at Leah in confusion. What else? Leah asked with a smile. Gu Mengmeng blinked her eyes and said, And? Leah sighed and said, All right, one pregnancy makes one foolish for 3 years. Seeing that you went offline because of my intelligence, I will kindly remind you. I am the most talented witch doctor in history. Detoxification is my specialty. Huh? Gu Mengmeng tilted her head, looking confused and innocent. Leah smiled as he tapped Gu Mengmeng's little nose. I'll be sad if you don't trust me when you're in trouble. It feels like a hero has no place to use his skills. How miserable. Gu Mengmeng burst out laughing and said, It's not that exaggerated. I just can't bear to see you and Elvis get hurt. Leah kissed Gu Mengmeng's forehead and said, Your reluctance certainly makes me feel warm, but Gu Mengmeng, I urgently need to show you my abilities. I look forward to you relying on me. Chapter 1592. Yes, my queen. Leah kissed the back of Gu Mengmeng's hand teasingly, before turning to leave like an elegant knight. Melinda was afraid that something would happen to Leah, so she asked Carter to personally bring some men to accompany Leah to retrieve the poisonous shellfish meat. Meanwhile, Melinda stayed at the coral dock to prepare a welcoming banquet for Gu Mengmeng. After all, this was the first time the messenger of the beast deity, the true leader of the Bridges tribe, had arrived at the bottom of the ocean after the establishment of the Bridges tribe. Naturally, they had to celebrate and at the same time, show the strength of the tribe to the messenger. They hoped that the Bridges tribe was not only the messenger's tribe, but also the messenger's pride. Gu Mengmeng naturally had to attend the banquet, but the air at the bottom of the ocean was limited and not suitable for a bonfire. So to heighten the atmosphere, Melinda used large seashells to place many luminous pearls around the banquet. They were arranged in picturesque disorder, like a small mountain of luminous pearls. It was extremely extravagant. The entire banquet was filled with the sour stench of extravagance. Gu Mengmeng felt that she was the only one emitting the fragrance of poverty. Sigh. She had been the messenger of the beast deity once, and now she was the beast deity again. Gu Mengmeng felt that she was probably the kind of person who could leave her name in history. Others were at most uncorrupted, but Gu Mengmeng was so uncorrupted that she did not even have any sleeves. Yeah, she must take the coral beads this time. She must give Elvis and Leah one each. She could not be the messenger of the beast deity for nothing. It sounded impressive, but she had suffered so much that she almost lost her life. She would be letting herself down if she did not get some mental damage compensation. Thinking of this, Gu Mengmeng secretly ground her teeth. Elvis moved closer to Gu Mengmeng's ear and blew gently. He pointed at the luminous pearls in the seashells and asked, "Do you want one?" Gu Mengmeng nodded without hesitation. Snakel did not say anything else, and went up to grab a handful, and stuffed it into Gu Mengmeng's hands. "Here, take it and play with it." Gu Mengmeng instinctively looked around. Seeing that no one had seen them, she hurriedly put the luminous pearls back and said softly, "This does not belong to us. It's not good to take it just like that. Didn't Melinda say that this is your tribe and everything here belongs to you? You can take whatever you want. There's nothing wrong with that." Elvis paused for a moment, then continued, "If anyone has any objections, ask them to look for me. If you're not convinced, you can challenge me. If you win against Leah and me, you can snatch this stupid thing back." Gu Mengmeng was sweating. Elvis meant that if they gave it, they would give it. If not, they would snatch it, right? She poked Elvis and said, "He's a beast king after all. It's not good to bully others like this. There's nothing bad about snatching things from my female." Elvis kissed Gu Mengmeng and grabbed another handful from the shelf for her. "Take it if you like it. The rules here are different from your world. Survival of the fittest, survival of the fittest. Power is the rule. Leah and I are powerful enough so we can set the rules and we will listen to you." Gu Mengmeng thought about it and felt that she should inform Melinda. After all, these things were taken out by Melinda, and it would not be good for her to keep them without a word. So Gu Mengmeng pulled Melinda and asked, "Can you give me a few of these pearls?" Chapter 1593. Gu Mengmeng followed Melinda's finger and almost fell over. Damn, what a flirtatious walk. A row of mermaids and orcs with different hair colors, with a human body and a fish tail. Their bodies were well built and smooth, unlike land beasts with bulky muscles, but rather well-proportioned and slender muscles. The mermaid lines connected to the fish tail made one's blood boil and imagination run wild. Gu Mengmeng felt her nose heating up. She quickly pinched her nose and waved her hands at Melinda. Don't. A married woman cannot withstand such temptation. Please spare me." Elvis's face darkened the moment he saw Gu Mengmeng pinching her nose. The reason was simple. She would only do this when she was about to have a nosebleed. And she would only have a nosebleed when she was tempted. Even if he or Leah stripped her naked, she would not have a nosebleed. She would only have such a reaction when he and Bulai were entangled together in some ambiguous scene. So, this row of fish. Haha, looks like it would be delicious if it was roasted. Gu Mengmeng had been glancing at Elvis the moment Melinda said she wanted to give Gu Mengmeng men. Naturally, she did not miss the murderous look in his eyes. She cupped Elvis's face with both hands and smiled. "Hubby, calm down, calm down. Look at my pregnant belly. Why would I have such thoughts? Don't worry, I only want the items. I don't want any of them." "Really?" Elvis lowered his eyes and stared at Gu Mengmeng coldly. Gu Mengmeng nodded firmly. "No, definitely not." Elvis thought about it and snorted. "You also said you don't want Leah. You also said you don't want Snake. You also said you weren't interested in that bird man a while ago." Gu Mengmeng felt that she had indeed been slapping herself in the face. She held her cheeks with both hands and looked up at Elvis. "Hubby, my face hurts." Elvis was flushed by her cuteness and his lips could not help but curl up. He removed her little hands and pinched her chubby little face due to her pregnancy. "If you know your face hurts, then don't do it again." Yeah, I won't do it anymore," Gu Mengmeng promised. Elvis then kissed Gu Mengmeng in satisfaction. Then he caressed Gu Mingming's tummy gently. After you give birth to a daughter, Leah and I will definitely make it up to you. It was not an exaggeration to say that Gu Mingming's legs immediately gave way when Elvis said that. She wasn't the one who wanted a mermaid to be her new lover. She was innocent. She was framed by Melinda. Sob, sob, sob. I feel so wronged, but I can't explain myself. Seeing how Gu Nambao was biting her handkerchief pitifully, Elvis's mood finally improved. He looked at the mermaid coldly and snorted without saying a word. He walked slowly to the main seat and sat down steadily. Carrying Gu Mingming in his arms, he sat in the most comfortable position for her to sit on as a human skin thermostatic chair. Intentionally or unintentionally, he played with Gu Mingming's long hair. That lazy and casual look made him look like King Zhou of Shang, who was carrying Daji to court. Everything was ready. Melinda had no intention of waiting for Kate and Leah. After all, females were respected in the beast world. As long as she and Gu Mingming were present, the banquet could begin. The first performance was, of all things, that row of mermaids performing a dance. Chapter 1594. Elvis's eyes were still looking down at Gu Mingming. The redder her face became, the darker his face became. Gu Mingming only retracted her gaze obediently when she heard the sound of teeth grinding above her head. She buried her entire face into Elvis's chest. Actually, she did not have the intention to take in a new partner, but since he danced so hard, wouldn't it be a waste if she did not watch? But it would not be good to cause some family conflict just to feast her eyes, right? Even if a young man in the modern world wanted to peek at a lady, he would not dare to do it in front of his wife, right? Gu Mingming's little act of burying her face really pleased Elvis. The malevolence on his face disappeared instantly, and he only felt that this ostrich was so adorable. So he lifted her little chin and kissed her deeply on the lips. Acting as if there was no one else around, they were deeply entangled. He kissed until Gu Mingming's whole body went limp and was almost out of breath, before he released her reluctantly. He used his thumb to gently wipe away the remaining saliva at the side of her lips, gritting his teeth and saying, I really can't wait. I can't wait for you to give birth to her today. Gu Mingming's face turned red because of the lack of oxygen. She pouted coquettishly and punched Elvis's chest, saying, If I give birth today, it will be premature. Elvis choked and said with a serious expression, That won't do. Leah said that you must be pregnant for a full month, or else it will not be good for you and your daughter. You still know? Gu Mingming glared at him. Gu Mingming could not be blamed for being pretentious. It was just that this brother's expression of desire was too obvious. She felt uncomfortable sitting on his lap. How many years had they been a married couple? Wasn't it just because she was pregnant that she could not have sex with him? Did he have to be so high profile and show how wronged he was in public for how long? Humph, all males in the world are the same. They are all animals that think with their lower bodies. Gu Mingming mumbled and stiffened her neck, not looking at Elvis anymore. Elvis shook his head helplessly and said, Silly girl, this is a display of my love for you. If I don't get hard when I see you, then what will happen to your future happiness? Don't be angry, it will affect your daughter badly. Gu Mingming became even angrier upon hearing this. She turned her head and asked, In your eyes, am I important or daughter important? Now that you have her, you don't care about me anymore? You're not afraid of my anger, but you're only concerned about whether your daughter will be affected? Elvis, doesn't your conscience hurt? Leah had told Elvis before that it was normal for pregnant women to be unreasonable due to their fluctuating emotions. Moreover, in Elvis's eyes, when had Gu Mingming ever been wrong? She was angry. It was obvious that he had said something wrong. He was the one who was wrong, not her. Since he was in the wrong, Elvis naturally apologized with a good temper, coaxing and teasing her. But just when Elvis was apologizing to Gu Mingming, a mermaid swam over and stood in front of Gu Mingming, saying, Mighty messenger, I am the third-level mermaid beast Jimmy. Can I invite you to swim in the sea with me? I know a place with a beautiful view. I think you're dreaming too. Elvis raised his eyebrows and sneered. Let's see if you have the ability to take my female away from my arms. Jimmy did not seem to be afraid of Elvis, who was the Beast King, at all. In other words, Males were fearless when it came to courtship. Chapter 1595. The corners of Elvis's lips curled up slightly, revealing a devilishly charming cold smile. No, you are wrong. I am not stopping you. I am giving you a chance. Jimmy tilted his head and looked at Elvis, as if he did not understand what was going on. Elvis stood up and placed Gu Mengmeng on the seat. Then he took an unknown fruit from the table and gave it to Gu Mengmeng. Xiao Meng, be good. Sit here and eat some melon and watch the show. Hubby. Gu Mengmeng felt that this was the ocean and not Elvis's home ground. It was better to avoid trouble. She could just reject Jimmy. There was no need to blow things up. But Elvis cupped the back of her head and planted a kiss on her forehead. Don't worry, it will be settled very soon. Gu Mengmeng was speechless. Elvis let go of Gu Mengmeng and took 2 long strides to stand in front of the mermaid beast. With this comparison, Gu Mengmeng realized that Elvis was much more muscular than Jimmy. His body proportions were also better and firmer. It was just that he was always hugging her every day, and rarely had the chance to show his body in front of her. As a result, Gu Mengmeng had almost forgotten how stimulating it was when she looked at Elvis from afar. She really did not know the true face of Mount Lu. It was only because she was in this mountain. TSK. It was no wonder Elvis was angry just now. Hugging a mountain of gold and digging for potatoes, no one would be happy about who was the mountain of gold. While Gu Mengmeng was reflecting and criticizing herself, Elvis had already opened his mouth to speak. If you want to woo my female, shouldn't you first issue a challenge to me? Elvis lowered his head slightly. He did not need to release his pressure as the oppressive aura of a beast king completely enveloped Jimmy. Elvis chuckled. With the absolute confidence and calmness of a superior, he said calmly, "Isn't accepting your challenge giving you a chance? We are in the ocean," Jimmy reminded. Elvis nodded and chuckled. There is no reason to stop a male from protecting his female, no matter where or who he is facing. Jimmy nodded in agreement and said, "Okay. Since that's the case, let's compete in the ocean." This is not fair. Gu Mengmeng panicked and instinctively said, "Elvis is a land beast, he can't breathe in the sea, how can he compete?" Jimmy wanted to woo Gu Mengmeng, and naturally would not go against her wishes. Whatever the female he liked said was right. "All right, let's compete here and not in the sea." Jimmy compromised without any principles. But Elvis did not appreciate it and said, "You don't have to give in to me, hubby." Hubby? Gu Mengmeng was rather worried. Elvis stretched his neck left and right, then stretched out his long arms to hug Gu Mengmeng and kiss her. "It's all right, I'm suffering from internal heat and need a cold shower to calm down. Just eat your melon and watch the show." Gu Mengmeng wanted to say something more, but Elvis pecked her on the lips again. He squinted his eyes and gave her a reassuring smile. Feeling helpless, Gu Mengmeng could only sigh and return to her original spot without making a sound. She silently watched Elvis and Jimmy walk past the edge of the bubble and into the sea. The sea was the territory of the mermaids. Even though Elvis was powerful, he had a very important weakness, which was that he only had 1 breath left. Chapter 1596. Gu Mengmeng gritted her teeth in her heart, but maintained a faint smile on her face. If Elvis lost, how was she going to reject this Jimmy later? While Gu Mengmeng was plotting in her heart, Jimmy had already launched his attack on Elvis. Jimmy was a righteous mermaid and disdained using underhanded methods. Otherwise, he would have just lured Elvis far away and depleted his breath to win. There was no need for him to attack so hastily. Elvis replied with a cold smile. All is fair in war. Giving up one's advantage for the sake of so-called morality was not righteousness, it was stupidity. Elvis tried to move his fist. There was indeed a strong resistance in the water. Even if he swung his fist over, it would probably be useless. Thus, he gave up on the idea of a hand-to-hand fight, and just stared coldly at Jimmy, waiting for his attack. Mermaids were extremely fast in the water. Even a beast king like Elvis could not see his movements clearly due to his limited vision in the water. However, vision was only a small factor in a battle. More importantly, It was the body's memory and instinctive sense of danger. So, when Jimmy's webbing was like a sharp knife aimed at Elvis's neck, Elvis's sharp claws were one step ahead of Jimmy, and had already grasped Jimmy's throat firmly. Tilting his head and smiling, the beast pressure suddenly erupted, creating a huge ripple in the water. The ripple quickly pushed outwards, forming a powerful undercurrent, causing the scales of all the mermaids present to explode. That kind of fear was emitted from the depths of their bones, and could not be resisted. Jimmy was just a third-level beast, and he was in such close proximity to the Beast King's pressure, so he naturally could not withstand it. His eyelids rolled back and he fainted, revealing his original form. Elvis was merciful, or else Jimmy would have been squashed into a fish meatball. It was not that Elvis had become merciful, it was just that Gu Mengmeng was pregnant, and such a bloody and violent scene was not good for his daughter's prenatal education. She was a little female. As long as there was a beautiful fairy tale in the world, it would be fine. When Elvis carried the fainted Jimmy back into the bubble, the row of mermaids who were prepared to express their goodwill to Gu Mengmeng all sat upright and still, not daring to act coquettishly in front of Gu Mengmeng anymore. Elvis threw Jimmy in front of them and said calmly, "He doesn't look like he can take a beating. Take good care of him." Yes. The mermaids understood that Elvis was indirectly expressing one word: scram. Thus, the row of mermaids carried Jimmy, who had transformed into his true form, out of the bubble. At the same time, Leo was walking back with a thick bunch of poisonous shellfish tendons. He looked at Jimmy's corpse and then at Elvis. The two of them exchanged glances and instantly understood what was going on with this row of mermaids. Leo mischievously tripped the mermaid beast in the middle with his tail. If they were in the water, nothing would have happened, but they were in a vacuum bubble. Hence, that mermaid stumbled and fell onto the people in front of him, bringing the people behind him with him. As a result, the entire row of mermaids fell out of the bubble in an extremely pathetic manner. It was a stark contrast to their cheerful appearance when they entered the bubble. Chapter 1597. Melinda lowered her head and smiled, replying to Carter using sound waves. She told him about Elvis's actions and concluded that even if she had the intention to make arrangements, those mermaids would have been scared out of their wits by Elvis. Who would dare to approach Gu Mengmeng? Gu Mengmeng also understood that Elvis's actions just now were not due to Jimmy's provocation. He was making an example out of her, and using an instant kill to all those mermaids who had their imaginations running wild. That was the only way to settle things once and for all. But this made the situation a little awkward. After all, Melinda had good intentions. So Gu Mengmeng cleared her throat and said, "After making arrangements for the kiss of the ocean, I will be staying in the desert for a while. Sigh, the sandstorms there are strong and there's no water source. Just thinking about it makes me miserable." Melinda was not a fool. How could she not understand that Gu Mengmeng was giving her a way out? She was saying that she would not be living in the ocean forever, and mermaids could not leave the water for long periods of time. So she would not take an ocean tribesman as partners. This was considered a proper official statement. Melinda did not have any intention of currying favor with Gu Mengmeng. She just thought that mermaids were handsome, and had a different style from land beasts. If Gu Mengmeng liked them, she would naturally be happy to see it happen. But from the looks of it, Elvis and Leo would not agree so easily. And Gu Mengmeng herself did not seem to have any intention of expanding her family. So she would not force it. The banquet was still going on, uninterrupted by this small incident. Singing and dancing to celebrate peace and prosperity made it feel like the Immortality Peach banquet in the heavens. After all, the mermaids were the only race in the beast world that knew music. Birds could also sing, but they did not know how to play musical instruments. They could only use their throats to produce sounds. But mermaids were different. They could produce different sounds by hitting different kinds of shells, corals, tortoise shells, and rocks. Finally, they produced a harmonious melody. Compared to a concert in the modern world, it was boring. But it was the most exciting performance Gu Mengmeng had seen in so many years in the beast world. Leah passed the shellfish tendon to Gu Mengmeng and whispered into her ear, "I have tested it. The tendon without flesh is not poisonous. What do you intend to do?" Gu Mingming took a piece of shellfish tendon and pulled it in her hand. It was very elastic, just a little too thin. Thus, Gu Mingming took 3 shellfish tendons and braided them into a braid. Then she strung the red coral beads together, 18 red coral beads in one string. She tied a dead knot at the end of the string, then made a simple china knot on the basis of the dead knot. Below the china knot, she tied 2 pieces of scrap pieces of the red coral beads, and the red coral bracelet was completed. Gu Mingming wore the bracelet on her wrist and smiled at Elvis, asking, "Hubby, does it look good?" Elvis rubbed Gu Mingming's little head dotingly and indulgently. "In my eyes you look good no matter what." Tsk glib tongue. Not a single word is true. As she said that, the corners of Gu Mingming's lips curled up. Elvis cupped Gu Mingming's little chin and looked straight into her eyes. The tenderness in his eyes was deeper than the ocean. He said seriously, word by word, "I have seen you crying in your most pathetic state. I have seen you in your most unkempt mourning. I know how irritated you are during your period. I also know how fragile you are when you feel sad for no reason. I have seen you at your best and at your ugliest. But regardless of beauty or ugliness, I like it all. As long as it's you, I can't move my eyes away." Aside from the topic, today's update has ended. See you tomorrow. Chapter 1598. Gu Mingming didn't answer Elvis, and just pecked his chin sweetly. Then she nestled in Elvis's arms and watched Melinda's performance as she knitted the bracelets. She wore the first one on her wrist, the second one for Elvis, the third one for Leah, and the fourth one for Melinda. Gu Mingming finished knitting the remaining corals and shellfish tendons. There were still 7 left. 4 sons and the one in their tummies needed 5 bracelets. Sandy wanted 1 bracelet. There was still 1 left. Gu Mingming's gaze swept around and landed on Oratin's face. Although they did not have that kind of relationship, Oratin was still Gu Mingming's guardian beast in the eyes of outsiders. She had to at least maintain her image, so Gu Mingming gave the last bracelet to Oratin. Oratin was a straight man, and did not have much interest in jewelry. He was more interested in the plate of meat in front of Gu Mingming. But as a male he still had the bottom line. He really could not snatch a female's food. But Oratin did not mind, while Fei Rue liked it very much. His clear big eyes kept staring at the bracelet on Oratin's wrist. There was no lack of corals in the ocean, but the problem was that the poisonous shellfish was too difficult to obtain. He definitely could not get it by himself. And even if he got it, he did not know how to knit Gu Mingming's braids, nor did he know how to knit a china knot. So, the raw materials were all from the deep ocean. But as a prince of the ocean, he did not have such a bracelet. Sob, 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 he really wanted it. Oratin looked at Fei Rue and raised his hand. "You want it?" Fei Rue nodded honestly. "Is it very obvious?" Oratin was expressionless. "Yeah, every time I see meat, it looks like this." Fei Rue smiled embarrassedly and did not reply. Oratin took off the coral bracelet from his wrist and handed it to Fei Rue. "This is for you." "Really?" Fei Rue's big eyes lit up. He looked at Oratin with admiration. But just as he was about to take it, he hesitated and lowered his head. "This is a gift from the great messenger. Everyone in your family has one. If you give me yours..." "I don't mind," Oratin answered honestly. He wasn't consoling her. As long as Leah cooked regularly, he really didn't care about anything else. Fei Rue still did not dare to take it, but he really wanted it. Hence, he jogged over to Gu Mingming and looked at her expectantly with a pair of eyes as clear as the stars in the sky. "Great messenger," Oratin said, "he is willing to give me that string of red corals. Can I have it?" Gu Mingming stared blankly at Fei Rue. Instead of answering, she asked, "I have already given it to Oratin. If he is willing to give it to you and you are willing to take it, just keep it. Why are you asking me?" Fei Rue smiled awkwardly and said, "I was afraid that if I accepted that string of red corals, you would be angry with Oratin and not dote on him anymore." Gu Mingming almost choked on her saliva. She and Oratin were really just family in name, and Oratin probably did not need her pampering. In this family, the person he needed the most was probably Leah. Thinking about this, Gu Mingming's gaze drifted towards Leah. Chapter 1599. So when Gu Mingming looked at him and Oriton with that gaze, Li's hair stood on end. He squinted his long and affectionate eyes and asked with a dangerous smile, "Xiao Mingming, what are you thinking about?" Gu Mingming felt like she had been caught in the act. She chuckled and shook her head to deny that she was not thinking about anything. After getting Gu Mingming's approval, Fei Rui happily received Oriton's red coral bracelet and wore it on his wrist. He happily showed it off to everyone, and even pulled Melinda's hand to show it off for a long time. This made Carter extremely helpless, and he could only clench his teeth and say, "You are Melinda's brother, I will tolerate you." That night, Gu Mingming stayed at the bottom of the sea. The next morning, Melinda, Carter and Fei Rui accompanied Gu Mingming to the location of the Kiss of the Ocean. If she was not sure that she was in the sea, Gu Mingming would have suspected that she was looking at a galaxy in the Milky Way. A black pearl floated in the center, and the surroundings were filled with a layer of black poisonous fog. It looked like a Hollywood sci-fi movie where a galaxy was observed from a spaceship. However, the color was not dazzling and there was only dead black. There were many shells floating in the poisonous fog. The shells moved slowly, like the sloth lightning in Zootopia. They opened and closed slowly, as if they were eating the poisonous fog. Gu Mingming did not have Snake's tear of the beast deity to protect her, and did not dare to get too close to the poisonous fog. She could only stay at a safe distance and pointed at the poisonous fog. "Leah, did you get the shellfish tendon from these shells yesterday?" Leah nodded in agreement. Gu Mingming rubbed her chin and thought seriously. "When I took the Kiss of the Ocean back then, it was in a huge shell. Do you think it was eaten by a poisonous shellfish like that?" Fei Rui secretly bit his lower lip and pulled Gu Mingming's arm. He shook his head and said, "No, no." Gu Mingming was confused. Fei Rui took a deep breath and tilted his head at Gu Mingming. He smiled and said to Gu Mingming, "Do you know about the legend of the deep sea, great messenger?" There was another legend? Gu Mingming was now a little sensitive to the word legend. Back in the desert, Higan told her a legend and then he died. In Moto, Grace had told her a legend, and then Grace had died. Now Fei Rui was going to tell her a legend? Frowning, Gu Mingming asked instinctively, "Can I not listen?" Fei Rui chuckled and said, "Let's hear it. This legend is related to the Kiss of the Ocean." Gu Mingming facepalmed, that feeling of unease growing stronger. Fei Rui did not wait for Gu Mingming's reply, and just sat on the back of the turtle beside her. He transformed his fishtail into his legs and hugged his knees obediently. He tilted his head to look at Gu Mingming and said, "Legend has it that this black pearl was not originally called the Kiss of the Ocean. It was just a poisonous pearl produced from these poisonous shellfish. Although it was poisonous, it was not to the extent that it could disperse in the ocean and not disperse." Chapter 1600. Fei Rui seemed to understand Gu Mingming's confusion, and just grinned. His smile was always so clear and clean that whenever he smiled, it was as if the surrounding poisonous fog was purified. Fei Rui continued hugging his knees, and looked at the black pearl in the middle of the poisonous fog. He took a deep breath before continuing. About 1,000 years ago, there was an extremely venomous snake that fell in love with a female. Gu Mingming was speechless and instantly immersed herself in the relationship between the characters. An extremely venomous snake? Little shit. A female? Wang Xiaoxin. The characters in the legend were all familiar people. This setting really hindered one's interest in listening to the story. Forget it, what legend? I'll just treat it as gossip. But this female didn't love him. She even hated him, rejected him, and wanted to kill him. Gu Mingming was taken aback. This version clearly did not match the truth. Gu Mingming did not forget the scene of Little Shit and Wang Xiaoxin reuniting. One said lovingly, "I hate you so much. Why did you make me wait for so long?" The other said affectionately, "Sorry, I came back late." Putting aside the fact that Wang Xiaoxin had plotted for 1,000 years in order to resurrect Little Shit, she had lured her to search for the 7 treasures step by step, and even sacrificed her own son. Just based on these 2 sentences alone, it was filled with the stench of adultery. Even if it was not love enough to shatter the heavens and earth, it should be unforgettable. How could it not be love, or even hatred? This was not logical, really not logical. Gu Mengmeng shook her head. Did you remember wrongly? Fei Rui looked at Gu Mengmeng in confusion. He shook his head seriously. There are not many legends in the deep sea, especially when the mermaid tribe has been the guardian of the kiss of the ocean for generations. So I will definitely not remember this legend wrongly. Gu Mengmeng pursed her lips. She could not figure it out no matter how hard she thought about it. She could only raise her hand. All right, continue. I will listen. Fei Rui nodded. Although the female was very resistant, that snake beast was unusually overbearing and unreasonable. He was also very powerful and unpredictable. In order to prevent the female's mate from finding her, he tied her up and hid her in the deep sea. As Fei Rui spoke, he turned to look at Gu Mengmeng. The method that Melinda made for you was passed down from 1,000 years ago. At that time, the snake beast also made a bubble like this for the female, so that she could move and breathe freely in the deep sea. Gu Mengmeng laughed dryly. Free movement and breathing? Within a limited area, he could move and breathe freely while being watched. What kind of freedom was that? Let's call it jail. Moreover, with such a depth, there was no chance of escaping. Gu Mengmeng twitched her lips and thought to herself, it was no wonder that little shit hated Wang Xiaoxin like that. The snake beast said that when the female is willing to mate with him, he will release the female. However, that female really rejected him. No matter what he did, she refused to mate with him. The more he pressured her, the more she resisted, just to escape. Then in order to escape, the female accepted a mermaid. Fei Rui's eyes dimmed as he said this. Chapter 1601. Fei Rui shook his head lightly, indicating that he was fine. Then he asked Gu Mengmeng, if it was you, would you accept someone you don't like just to escape? Gu Mengmeng really wanted to shake her head and say no. If it was 5 years ago, when she first came to the beast world, she might have said that. But what she had experienced in the past 5 years had taught Gu Mengmeng to lower her head to reality. Imagine, what if Cole had imprisoned her and forced her to mate with him? In order to escape and meet up with Elvis and Leah on land, Gu Mengmeng would definitely agree to mate with a certain mermaid. Not to mention that she would rather die than submit. Her life was still tied to Elvis and Lee's, and she was pregnant with a little one. If she died, Elvis and Leah would definitely suffer more than death. They would go crazy and destroy the entire beast world, including themselves. And Gu Mengmeng would never let that happen. So the answer was obvious. Gu Mengmeng would definitely agree to accept a mermaid as a partner in order to escape. Although she was hesitant, Gu Mengmeng still nodded and said, if it was me, I would have done the same. She could feel Elvis tightening his arms around her. She turned back to look at Elvis. Elvis's expression was solemn, as if he was hesitating for a long time, before saying casually, you did the right thing. Gu Mengmeng leaned into Elvis's arms and laughed softly, saying, but this kind of situation will not happen to us anymore. You and Leah are both beast kings. There is almost no chance of success to kidnap me under your watch. Fei Rui smiled and did not expose Gu Mengmeng's words. Actually, as long as they did not care about the consequences, it was still possible. For example, they were at the bottom of the sea now. Even if Elvis and Leah were beast kings, they would not be able to unleash their full potential in such a deep sea. They just had to burst their oxygen bubble, and they could easily kidnap Gu Mengmeng. But in the deep sea now, the mermaids were all loyal to Gu Mengmeng. No matter how much they wanted to mate with Gu Mengmeng, they would not use such an extreme method. This was the fundamental difference between mermaids and snake beasts. Fei Rui knew that with Gu Mengmeng and Li's intelligence, it was impossible for them not to have thought of this possibility. But they had given the mermaid absolute trust, which was why they dared to follow them down to such a dangerous place. This trust was extremely precious, and the entire mermaid clan treasured it very much. Naturally, they would not do anything that would harm this trust. Since he didn't know how to do it, why would he say those words that would cause discord? Fei Rue withdrew his gaze and continued to look at the kiss of the ocean. The female isn't running away blindly. Although she's in the deep sea, she's able to communicate with the outside world through the mermaid. Her partner found the beach and started fighting with the snake beast. He fought with no regard for his own life, and the mermaid took the opportunity to take her away. Gu Mengmeng rested her chin on her hand as she listened to the story. Although Fei Rue only mentioned it casually, Gu Mengmeng was still shaken to the core. Little Shit's strength was already at the level of a demigod. What kind of price did Wang Xiaoxin's other partners have to pay to entangle him on the shore and give her a chance to escape? Just thinking about it made Gu Mengmeng shiver. Chapter 1602. The female managed to escape to the shore, but the mermaid could not leave with her. Fei Rue continued. Because once on land, the mermaid would not have any advantage in battle. Not only could he not protect her, he might even be a burden to her. He could not waste the chance to escape that she had paid such a huge price for, so the mermaid decided to let the female leave by herself, while he returned to the sea to help her stall the snake beast, to fight for a chance of survival for her partners. Even if only one of her partners could leave this place alive, it would be a precious blessing to her. Gu Mengmeng caught an important point, which was that Wang Xiaoxin had agreed to mate with the mermaid, but this promise was not fulfilled in time, and the two of them were separated. In other words, the mermaid could not break through the level limit, and could at most reach the third level. A third-level orc challenging a demigod-level snake beast. Calling it a challenge was an exaggeration. It was practically suicide. With Little Shit's fighting style, one whip of the snake beast's tail could directly turn him into a fishball. The mermaid was obviously not the snake beast's match, but he still managed to stall the snake beast. Because he told the snake beast, he stole the female when the snake beast was not around, and only he knew where the female was hidden. Fei Rue turned to look at Gu Mengmeng. Isn't this lie very clumsy? If he really stole the female, why did he come back and walk right into the trap? Isn't running away the most logical choice? But perhaps it was because the mermaid tribe was simple and did not know how to lie. Or perhaps it was because the snake beast was in a frenzy and could not differentiate the truth from the lies. Anyway, the mermaid's lie successfully attracted the snake beast's pursuit, and in order to fight for more chances for her partners to escape, he kept swimming deeper into the sea. Indeed, the mermaid had an advantage in speed in the sea, but this advantage only existed when the difference in power between the two parties was not too great. If Little Shit was only a third-level or fourth-level beast, the mermaid's strategy could have succeeded. But Little Shit was a demigod-level beast in the past. Such a huge difference in level was enough to surpass the advantage of a race. Moreover, Little Shit was not an ordinary land beast. He was also considered to be his domain in the water. The mermaid was dreaming if he wanted to fight for time by swimming in front of Little Shit. Indeed, Fei Rue continued. Unfortunately, the mermaid was caught by the snake beast before he could run very far. However, the snake beast did not kill him. Instead, it hung him and the other partners of the female upside down on the shore, forcing the female to go back by herself. The female did not run far from the start. She had been lurking nearby. When she saw that her partner and the mermaid were captured, and that their lives were in danger, she finally took the initiative to appear in front of the snake beast. Gu Mengmeng had guessed it. Although Wang Xiaoxin was frighteningly rational, he was at least not a selfish person who did not care about the lives of others, especially those who were caught. They were her partners. Fei Rue was silent for a moment before he continued. The female ate the black pearl with the snake beast's venom. She needs the snake beast to detoxify her every day, or she will die from the poison. In exchange for the safety of their partners, the snake beast did not imprison the female at the bottom of the sea. Instead, he allowed her to stay on land with her partners. However, she had to go to his side every sunset to detoxify him. Chapter 1603. He obtained an ancient secret recipe from the elders of the ocean tribe. There is no antidote for the poisonous shellfish pearl, and he can only exchange his life for hers. As Fei Rui said, he pointed at the black pearl floating in the poisonous fog and said, "It was born in the poisonous shellfish, grew up in the poisonous shellfish and belongs to the poisonous shellfish. If he wants to save that female, the only way is to eat the poisonous shellfish king, and then kiss the female. Mouth to mouth, he will suck the black pearl into his body." Gu Mingming frowned and did not say a word. The males in the beast world were not afraid of death for the person they liked. They were brave and blind in love, and would never be stingy with their lives. She could even imagine how overjoyed the mermaid would be when he found out about this antidote method. His entire mind was filled with the thought that Wang Xiaoxing could be saved, and he did not have the slightest bit of rationality to think about how he would lose his life. The mermaid swallowed the entire poisonous shellfish king and swam towards the shore with all his might before the poison attacked his heart. Finally, he saw the female who was about to meet the snake beast under the afterglow of the setting sun. The poisonous shellfish king was stuck in his throat, and his vocal cords were already destroyed, so he could not make any sound. He could only use his tail to slap the surface of the water to attract the female's attention. Even though the poison of the poisonous shellfish king made his skin burn in pain, he did not care and just slapped the surface of the water with all his might, splashing countless waves. Finally, he successfully attracted the female's attention. The female ran to the beach and asked him what was wrong. He could not speak and could only hold the female tightly and kiss her lips. At this point, Fei Rui turned around to look at Gu Mingming. His eyes shone with a light that seemed like he understood, as if he was longing for it, but also as if it was just an ignorant fantasy. He said, "It was said that the scene at that moment was frozen. It was so beautiful that even the waves could not bear to attack their kiss. That was the most peaceful moment in the history of the ocean, without any waves. The setting sun gilded them with the most beautiful glow, just like a pair of gentle hands, gently protecting their first kiss. Once in a lifetime, the only kiss." The poisonous pearl in the female's body was sucked into the mermaid's body by the poisonous shellfish king. The two poisons caused the mermaid's skin to start festering. He used the last of his strength to push the female away, and told her that she was free and the snake beast could no longer use this pearl to threaten her. As for the mermaids, they threw themselves into the sea, sacrificed their broken bodies to the beast god, and stayed in the sea forever. Gu Mingming finally understood that the shell that she had casually touched previously was actually the poisonous shellfish king that was stuck in the mermaid's throat. There are people who are infatuated with love in the world. This hatred has nothing to do with the wind and the moon. Gu Mingming lowered her head and murmured softly. She smiled. "Our previous beast messenger really has no lack of Casanova." Elvis hugged Gu Mingming and kissed the top of her head. "You don't lack anyone by your side either." Gu Mingming nodded her head. Of course she knew that she did not lack Casanova by her side. Snake, who had died twice for her. Wasn't that the greatest love saint? There was also that Grace who tore off her own wings and jumped into the volcano lava for her. Glancing sideways, Gu Mingming hugged Elvis and Leah. "Both of you, you must accompany me well. Don't try to be a Casanova, understand?" Chapter 1604. Fei Rui nodded with a smile, then opened his mouth. This action made Gu Mingming break out in cold sweat. She frowned and her eyes widened in shock. She held onto Fei Rui's shoulders tightly with both hands. "What did you do?" Fei Rui was still smiling. His eyes were as bright as the stars, clearer than the ocean and more flawless than the moonlight. "I am the Prince of Bridges, and also a tribesman of Saint Nazaire." Fei Rui smiled as he spoke, but the blood trickling down from the corner of his lips stung Gu Mingming's eyes. Fei Rui's bright smile was tainted with a heart-wrenching pain. "Moreover, I like the Great Messenger the most. I want to protect the deep sea line, and also, the Great Messenger." Gu Mingming shook her head. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she reached for Fei Rui's throat, wanting him to spit out the poisonous shellfish king. But Fei Rui grabbed Gu Mingming's hand and left a mark on the back of her hand. Then he smiled at Gu Mingming. "Great Messenger, don't be sad. My death can protect the entire ocean. It is my honor." After saying that, Fei Rui leaned back and charged into the poisonous mist. That pair of eyes that were as bright as the stars were smiling the entire time, looking at the crowd not far away. His most precious sister was there. But his brother-in-law was really reliable. He would protect Melinda well, so there was no need to worry. His most important friend was there. But Lee's cooking was so delicious. Orton should be living a blissful life. His most beloved great messenger was there. Oh no, the great messenger was crying. But it was all right. Her partner was so strong and loved her so much. He would definitely be able to coax her. Sorry, great messenger, I didn't want you to cry. But I still feel very blessed to have all of you send me off on my last journey. Forgive me for my selfishness. I really don't have the courage to complete my last journey alone. Finally, thank you for listening to my long story. Fei Rui dispersed the poisonous fog. He turned around in front of the kiss of the ocean and swallowed it into his stomach. He could feel that the poisonous pearl was corroding his throat along his chest, slowly moving downwards. Great, it was sucked into the shell by the poisonous shellfish king. Fei Rui heaved a sigh of relief. Then he slowly closed his eyes. It was as if the Milky Way in the night sky had disappeared. There was not a single star left. Fei Rui. Gu Mingming felt a burning sensation in her chest. She screamed at the top of her lungs as if it was tearing her entire chest apart. How could this be? Why would Fei Rui do something so unexpected? Yesterday, he was still acting coquettishly towards her, asking her if he could accept the bracelet Orton gave him. But today Melinda stepped forward and held Gu Mingming's wrist. Her eyes were red, but she tried her best to smile. She said to Gu Mingming, "Great messenger, don't cry. Brother has long decided to do this. This is his mission. He is honorable and not tragic. Did you already decide to do this?" Gu Mingming looked at Melinda with reddened eyes. Melinda nodded and replied, "Ever since the day the kiss of the ocean reappeared in the deep sea, brother has been preparing for this." "Then why didn't you stop him?" Gu Mingming didn't want to blame Melinda, because she knew that Melinda would be the most upset about Fei Rui's death. But she couldn't help it. Chapter 1605. I stopped him. Melinda glanced at Gu Mingming and then at Elvis. She didn't continue. Gu Mingming choked. She narrowed her eyes and asked Melinda, "So those mermaid males you arranged yesterday?" Melinda nodded and said, "They are the most outstanding mermaids that I chose. They are willing to exchange their entire lives for a kiss from you." Gu Mingming really didn't know what to say. Her heart ached for Fei Rui. But other people's lives were also lives. Melinda seemed to know what Gu Mingming was thinking about. So she pulled Gu Mingming's hand and said, "I know I am very selfish, but if possible, I don't want my brother to sacrifice himself to protect the pearl. So I prepared those." Gu Mingming shook her head and said, "I don't blame you." Yes, she had no right to blame Melinda. Didn't she sacrifice Miranda's child to protect her own child? In times of life and death, human nature was always selfish. Gu Mingming looked at Melinda's bloodshot face that was still forcing a smile. In the end, she could not bear to scold her, and could only sigh heavily. "You should have told me earlier. Maybe I could have stopped Fei Rui?" Melinda's eyes were bloodshot. Melinda forced a smile and shook her head. If no one swallowed the poisonous shellfish king to absorb the kiss of the ocean, this pearl would continue to release poisonous fog and attract all the poisonous shellfish in the sea. When its poison dissipates, this black pearl will become an ordinary pearl, and the kiss of the ocean will cease to exist. So someone must sacrifice himself to absorb the kiss of the ocean back into the poisonous shellfish king. Only then can the poisonous shellfish king continue to nurture it. Only then can the kiss of the ocean still exist when the next messenger of the beast deity arrives 1,000 years later. There was no such thing as a cheat in this world for no reason. Every benefit you obtained was paid for by someone else in silence. But some prices were hidden and you didn't know. And some prices were displayed in front of you in a bloody manner, letting you know what guilt was. Gu Mingming clutched at her chest as she looked at Fei Rui, who was curled up into a ball and sleeping like a baby. She watched as his body was slowly corroded by the poisonous fog until it completely disappeared, turning into a puddle of black fog. And in the middle of the fog, there was a small shell that was half a finger long and 2 fingers wide. It opened and closed slightly and the poisonous fog was absorbed bit by bit. Fei Rui didn't even leave a corpse behind. His flesh and blood became nutrients for the poisonous shellfish king to nurture the kiss of the ocean. His flesh and blood became the nutrients for the poisonous shellfish king, Gu Mengmeng, Gu Mengmeng, and Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng looked at Gu Mengmeng, and the poisonous shellfish kings. Gu Mengmeng felt and felt. The poisonous shellfish king into Gu and Gu Chen Vi. Da and Gu Tian Mengmeng and Gu. The shells of the poisonous shellfish broke into pieces and fell off, sinking into the deep sea and disappearing into the endless darkness. Without the protection of the shell, the shellfish flesh slowly turned into a black mist just like Fei Rui, and was slowly absorbed by the poisonous shellfish king. All the poisonous fog quickly, Guit and the Gu Li and the king and Gu, the Lin the king, Li. Chapter 1606. The poisonous shellfish king fell into the mud at the bottom of the sea, and then the mud started to change at a speed visible to the naked eye. First, the color turned as black as ink. Then the corals and seaweed on the mud withered and died as if their life was sucked out. Then they were sucked in by the black mud, as if they had fallen into a swamp. The small fish that could not escape in time flipped over, then fell into the mud and were also swallowed. Gu Mengmeng recognized that this was no longer mud, but a swamp at the bottom of the sea. When she went to retrieve the kiss of the ocean, it was little shit who carried her all the way there. Now that she thought about it, if the person who accompanied her was not little shit, no one would have been able to withstand this poison. Even Snake would not have been able to withstand it. Was she going to suffer the consequences 1,000 years later for the sins she committed back then? She did not forget that little shit's skin was almost completely corroded by the poisonous fog, and his wounds were so deep that his bones could be seen. So now that she was the one who planted the seeds of evil, 1,000 years later, should she be the one to escort the next messenger of the beast deity to retrieve the kiss of the ocean? Without Snake's tear of the beast deity, she was no longer immune to all poisons. By then she would probably die here, right? Wasn't it ironic that the mighty beast deity would die from the poison of the kiss of the ocean? Elvis tightened his arms around Gu Mengmeng's waist and kissed her little hand. He hugged her in his arms and said softly, "Now that things have come to this, there's no use being sad. Fei Rui is a responsible male. We won't forget him." Gu Mengmeng nodded and leaned lightly against Elvis's chest. "I came to settle the kiss of the ocean, but never thought that it would be settled in such a manner. I thought that nothing would happen as long as I forbid others from swearing to me, but, other than swearing, it turns out that legends can also kill people. I don't want to hear any legends in the future. No one is allowed to tell me legends anymore." Elvis chuckled, feeling rather helpless. In the beast world, the lives of males had always been as cheap as grass. Not to mention Fei Rui, who sacrificed himself for justice. There were many males who sacrificed their lives for the sake of pleasing their females. Just how many males had died because of Nina in the past? Who would feel the slightest bit sad? The males in the beast world were ferocious and aggressive. There were countless deaths and injuries every day. It was survival of the fittest, and the winner would take all the food. This was the truth of the beast world, and also the standard. No one would shed tears for the weak. No one would even remember the males who died, because they were not strong enough. Only Gu Mengmeng valued the lives of males so much. He loved her kindness, but he also felt sorry for her kindness. Sighing, Elvis patted Gu Mengmeng's back lightly and said, "All right, the second rule in our family is that no one is allowed to talk about legends. If anyone dares to mention the word legend in front of you in the future, I'll bite them to death, okay?" Gu Mengmeng wanted to laugh, but she could not. She looked at the poisonous shellfish king that had sunk deep into the swamp, and the surroundings that looked more and more like the scene she had seen when she was retrieving the kiss of the ocean. She shook her head and said, "Let's go, this place will become very dangerous later." "All right." Elvis did not say anything else and carried Gu Mengmeng in his arms. He gave Carter a look, and the group of them turned around and swam towards the huge bubble that Melinda had prepared for Gu Mengmeng. Only Gu Mengmeng and Melinda kept turning back to look at the abyss that had been swallowed by darkness. They knew that there was a clean young man there. He had the clearest eyes and the warmest smile in the world. But from today onwards, he had to guard that pearl alone in the darkness for 1,000 years. Aside from the topic. Chapter 1607. Fei Rui's death was a huge blow to Gu Mingming. She felt terrible, but didn't know who to blame. She couldn't find an outlet to vent her pent-up frustrations, so she was depressed all day long. At times like this, she started to miss Cole. After Cole's death, Gu Mingming thought about it a lot. Putting aside her subjective feelings of love and hate, Cole actually treated her quite well. He shouldered all the dirty things on himself, so that when something like Fei Rui's death happened, she could feel justified in hating him, blaming him and blaming him. As for herself, she had no qualms about it. Cole's personality was indeed twisted, but he also treated her with a twisted kindness. Elvis and Leah didn't want Gu Mingming to stay in the deep sea, so they briefed Carter on the tribe's operations, as well as the matters to take note of when protecting the kiss of the ocean, before leaving the deep sea with Gu Mingming. Surprisingly, Oriton, who had always been a glutton, didn't pester Leah for food. His face was still expressionless but solemn. After reaching the shore, Oriton asked Gu Mingming, "Are you feeling terrible?" Gu Mingming looked at Oriton in confusion. Oriton pursed his lips and added, "It's about little Fei Rui." Gu Mingming's eyes dimmed as she nodded. Oriton asked, "Is it the feeling of having a hot stomach?" Gu Mingming smiled bitterly and nodded again. Oriton said thoughtfully, "Oh." After a long silence, he spoke again. "So this is how it feels to lose a friend." Gu Mingming looked at Oriton in confusion. She wanted to ask him something, but couldn't find the right words to express herself. But Oriton seemed to understand Gu Mingming's gaze and answered directly, "I didn't have any friends in the past. I only started to get closer to others after meeting you guys. You, Elvis and Leah are strong enough, so this is the first time I've lost a friend." Gu Mingming patted Oriton's shoulder and said, "Someone once told me that not every separation can prepare you well. It will cause you pain and catch you off guard. So, cherish the people in front of you. While they are still by your side, do your best to treat them well. That way, when they are caught off guard, our hearts won't be full of guilt. If only I had treated him better at that time. If only I had listened to him seriously at that time. If only I had listened to him seriously at that time. If only I had been tortured to a pulp." Oriton seemed to understand, but not really. He nodded his head and looked back at the deep sea for the first time. He told himself in his heart that from now on, whenever he met someone he cared about, he would spare no effort to treat them well. After leaving the deep sea, Gu Mingming's last stop was Saint Nazaire. When she returned to Saint Nazaire, she saw Barit standing at the entrance of the tribe to welcome her from afar. Barit, whom she had not seen for a long time, had already matured. He was no longer the lone brave young man who blindly obeyed Gu Mingming's orders and helped her escape from Saint Nazaire regardless of the consequences. In the short span of 5 years, he had been polished by the word love that he couldn't say out loud, and he felt a sense of vicissitudes. Other than Barit, Burke and Kamwu had also come to Saint Nazaire. Chapter 1608. The change of the Beast King was such a big matter, it was easy to find out about it. Kamwu was now taller than Gu Mingming by a head and a half. If Gu Mingming wanted to hug her son, she had to first wave her hands and make her son bend down. This meant that her son had really grown up and was a mature male now. "Mum, why do I have a feeling that you are going to abandon me?" Kamwu walked to Gu Mingming's side and tugged at the corner of her shirt. "Don't tell me you despise me for being a male now that you have a younger sister? Mum, I am your precious son after all. You can't just abandon him just like that, right? I won't fight with my younger sister for your affection." Gu Mingming poked Kamwu's head. "What's in your head? You are also a piece of flesh that fell from your mother's body. Back then, I almost sacrificed my life to give birth to you. How can you use such heartless words to mock me today?" Mum, I was wrong." Kamwu had always been a straightforward person. Seeing Gu Mingming poke him, he did not get angry and just laughed dryly. Gu Mingming sighed. But Kamwu, Mum can't follow you for the rest of your life. Your second brother also has his own things to do. You have to grow up and learn to be independent. Upon hearing that, Kamwu immediately exploded. Mum, are you still going to abandon me? Then how about this? Mum, I found you a new lover. He's quite fun. Why don't you? Before Kanwu could finish his sentence, he was sent flying by Elvis's kick. His face was so black that ink could drip out from it. New lover? Elvis clenched his teeth and squeezed out word by word. Do you want to die? MMM? Gu Mingming hurriedly stopped Elvis. She patted his chest and said, Children speak without thinking. They are just children talking nonsense. Why are you throwing a tantrum? Domestic violence isn't right. Leah pulled Gu Mingming back from Elvis's arms and hugged her in his arms, not allowing her to stop Elvis. With a fake smile plastered on his face, he glanced at Kanwu who had been sent flying, then looked at Gu Mingming and said, I feel that other than the amazing medical skills in that world, some of the proverbs are also very reasonable. For example, a loving mother produces spoiled children. A filial son is born under the rod. An unpolished jade is worthless. A son who doesn't get spanked is a failure. Gu Mingming finally understood that Kamwa's new lover was like poking a hornet's nest. Elvis and Leah were most afraid of this. Sigh, this silly son, why did he only grow taller and not grow a brain? Saying such words in front of these two vinegar buckets was really asking for a good death, just like his father. But no matter how much he wanted to court death, he was still her biological son. Gu Mingming definitely could not watch as her two Beast King fathers bully her second-level son. So he pushed Leia hard. Actually, with her little strength, she could not move Leah at all. But because she did not have the powers of a Beast King, Leah was even more cautious when carrying her. He did not dare to use too much strength and was even more careful than carrying a piece of tofu. He was afraid that she would get hurt. So with Gu Mingming's push, she really struggled out. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.